Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the latest issue of Colorful Conversations by the West Hartford Chamber of Commerce and the Minority Business Network. My name is Chris Conway. I'm the president and CEO of the West Hartford Chamber of Commerce, and I would just like to start with a little bit of background information. One of the committees at the West Hartford Chamber of Commerce is our Minority Business Network. It was established to provide visibility, networking opportunities, and resources to chamber members who are also members of underrepresented racial, ethnic, and religious populations. The mission is to provide our members with opportunities, connections, and resources. The Minority Business Network hosts a range of programming intended to increase visibility of minority-owned and represented businesses, provide a discussion forum for the unique challenges faced by minority professionals, increase diversity of our chamber membership, and you can learn more about the Minority Business Network at our website, whchamber.com. Colorful Conversations was started over 3 years ago and is a quarterly panel discussion series designed to take a deep dive into issues.
This, as I was saying to Jermaine and June before everybody else got on, like one big happy family. We're entertainers, book writers, we're successful, everybody in their own right. But the fun that we're going to have right now is just really not necessarily taking a deep dive, but jumping into how are they successful, some history, some present, some future conversation. But more importantly, we're just going to put something out there, see how it goes. And it's going to be like double Dutch. As people jump in, then they jump back out, and then somebody else is going to get in. Hey, what's up, Evelyn? See over there? Okie doke. So without further ado, let me just introduce everybody. We're just going to go down alphabetically. First on the stage, you got Mr. June Archer, television media host, music executive. You've probably seen him all over the place, but everybody wants to know the secret of happiness. And the author, June Archer, lets us in on the secrets in his new book, Yes, Every Day Can Be a Good Day. He's currently at the helm of a growing multimedia marketing company as president and CEO of 1128 Entertainment. June got his first exposure to the industry on the music scene behind the microphone. He soon realized that his dream would soon become a reality by successfully impacting the industry behind the scenes. Most recently, he's added the credit of executive producer to his name with reality shows, The DocuTape, and Behind the Unsigned shows debuted on Fuse TV. He also co-produced motivational pregame content for Sunday NFL Countdown on ESPN. With June's combined musical talents, his experience in the entertainment industry, as well as his commitment to community, he's reaching for the stars and encouraging others to join him. His quote is, "No goal is ever out of reach. Once you've realized your dream, that doesn't mean you stop. It just means that you dream bigger." June Archer, hello, brother.
Thank you, brother Steve, for that intro. I appreciate you. I'm excited to be here with this amazing talent pool of individuals making magic happen throughout our state of Connecticut and beyond. So thank you for having me, brother Steven.
You got it, man. Miss Evelyn Brooks, showrunner and producer. She's an award-winning TV showrunner, show caller, director, experimental events producer. Excuse me, Evelyn. She began her career on air and television news as an anchor and a general assignment reporter. Created successful content in wellness, live and virtual events, unscripted, food and lifestyle, home design, variety, pilot, documentary, hidden camera, and 1-hour talk formats. She has major market and syndicated production credits from OWN, that's Oprah's network, Telepictures, King World, Lifetime, Bravo, WE Network, MTV, Fox, BET, CBS, and NBC. She directs, oversees audio content, short form, long form, and platform specific digital content, while also incorporating social and analytics. She's been nominated for an Emmy, 2 NAMIC Vision Awards, and is the recipient of an NAACP Image Award. Put your hands together, act like we're live. Miss Evelyn Brooks, what's going on, sister?
Hey there. Oh, this is so great to be here. Thank you for the invitation, and I'm looking forward to the conversation for sure.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Now, if you guys saw the advertisement for this, we had actor and director Musa Kresh, but we found out that he's actually on set right now in California, so he's not able to join us. If he's able to dip in, then we'll get with him as well. So moving on to Miss Monica Lee. Now, did I pronounce the last name correct, Monica? Is it Lee?
It's Lee. You're correct.
Yes. Okie doke. Monica surrounds herself with acting as well as dance. She's won several awards, including Best Actress, as well as Viewer's Choice in a feature-length film. Numerous opportunities being a television show host, which included but was not limited to professional athletes along with celebrities, just to name a few. She's been working in the media field for over 24 years, with 15 of those years working in sports. A certified dance judge for the last 10 years with the Mid-Atlantic Palm Dance Association. She has some upcoming projects that she's involved in, but says that one of the things that she has high hopes of is to write, direct, and produce her own film one day. So stay tuned. What's going on, Miss Monica?
Thank you guys for having me so much. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm looking forward to the conversation and talking and discussing with the rest of the panelists. So thank you again.
Awesome. So last but certainly not least, it's a good friend of mine, Mr. Jermaine Miller-Summers, a leader who wears not too many, but just enough hats. She is the founder and CEO of HOV LLC, with the rapidly growing divisions of Hope of Vision Publishing and Somerset Books. She's a partner in two companies, Copeland and Miller Associates LLC, a multimedia consulting firm, and Meredith Entertainment Group LLC, a television and film production company. Equipped with a degree from the world-renowned fashion industry of technology in New York City, she deserves experience as a regional manager and trainer for The Gap, where she oversaw 14 stores to transition from the fashion industry into the entertainment industry. Her experience in marketing savvy led her to manage artists like The Lox, signed to heavyweight record label executive Sean Diddy Combs. Is it Sean or Puff? Well, anyway, y'all know who he is. Other artists included the late DMX, who was signed to Rough Rider. And after 10 years of honing her skills in the industry and a desire to create something of her own, Mrs. Miller-Summers feels called and excited to help others create their own creative excellence. Yo, put your hands together for Ms. Jermaine Miller-Summers. What's going on, Jermaine?
How you doing, Steve? This is a great opportunity. Great opportunity. I am so excited to be a part of this panel and to be able to share with all those that are able to tune into the call. And so, hey, let's share the power of information. And like I would say, storytelling.
Exactly. No, and I appreciate that. So we're just going to jump right into it. At the end of the day, we just want to share some knowledge. Obviously, yes, I've been in the entertainment industry as well, and we can laugh and joke about that. But some of these questions are just going to be thrown out there. And then whoever wants to jump in, unless it's specifically targeted, please do. One of the things that came up in regards to the industry, whether we're talking about history going from the music industry, where it was long recorded and documented, like long before Elvis Presley, there were these other artists, right? And we dip into that a little bit, but also something that was brought up recently is the fact of going from black and white TV to Technicolor, and the fact that the industry was not necessarily prepared for the different shades of our hues, so to speak. Does anybody want to jump into that and talk about the history, or even the history of yourself and how you got involved in what you're currently successful in doing? Oh, I can see I'm gonna have to jump out there. Okay, this is definitely double Dutch. We'll start with Mr. June Archie. Go ahead, buddy.
For me, in terms of my career in music and television, as you mentioned in the intro, it started out with the recording group Room Service, signed to Elektra Records, and then thus being inspired to go into bigger things behind the scenes as an executive. As you mentioned, the industry not preparing for people of color. When you make that adjustment to television, it happens in a lot of different industries. When you talk about media now, we really had to take a really great look at what that meant for people of color being on television. I was just watching a documentary about this that talked about just women in their hair, women in their shades, and what they did in terms of makeup to make them look presentable on television, and what the difficulty was behind that. And that, you know, our counterparts was like, well, don't worry about it. It doesn't really make a difference. And now realizing that it made the biggest difference in the world in terms of representation and what we look like on television, not only just to be presentable, but to actually represent the different shades of color as it pertains to people of color. And I think we've done a really great job, but I think we're doing even a more better job when you talk about what Miss Evelyn has been doing in film and television, to make sure that we have programming that fits all of who we are, what we are, what we represent. And with that comes the opportunity to celebrate the different shades of color, that we could try to break the barrier. And it's going to take some time because it happens to be Black and brown people, break this barrier of colorism that happens to continue to take place that we've seen in these industries. So that is just my 2 cents in terms of just that historic piece, in terms of, you talked about the hues and the shades as it relates to television.
And Miss Evelyn, you're in that, as June suggested, every day, all day. What's been your experience from the time that you started to what you're seeing now and where you kind of see it going?
Well, that's really an interesting question because it has a lot to do with how you came into the industry in so many cases. In terms of the genre, so to speak. So if you came in and you worked behind the scenes, or you were in front of the camera, or you had a technical position, your entry point was always different. And when it got to be, when we're talking about being in front of the camera, there was always this idea of, how presentable were you? Because you felt like you were not, you were representing yourself, you're representing your community. And then, when we talk about the white gaze, right? So are you presentable in the eyes of, what white people in the community might think you're supposed to look like? And so it's a fine line. When you think about now how far we've come, where we can wear our natural hair, we can wear braids, like all of those things. We were, sometimes quietly, sometimes publicly told, oh, you don't want to present that way. And so to really be able to evolve in this way where we can show up as we are, with our hair in our natural state, or however we might want to wear it, that's a journey. And it took a lot of work, and a lot of people sacrificed, and a lot of jobs were left in the process. Oprah shares that same story about how, she had her afro and they tried to straighten it and all of that. So you really have to come in with a strong foundation of who you are to begin with, to be able to deflect all of those messages that you're getting about what you look like and whether it is or is not good enough.
Right. Wow, that's deep. Okay. Monica, I mean, you're in the game, acting, dancing, all that stuff. I'm sure you've seen the genre of everything that you gotta look like, dance like, so on and so forth. What's been your experience from where you started to where you're at now?
So for myself, coming up in my first love being dance, and that being ballet, predominantly it was a white, style of dance. And you had to look a certain way. You had to have a specific type of body type. And if you were a certain complexion, people wouldn't take you seriously, so to speak. For me, I think just being, being a child born from a Black father and a white mother, it was always like, well, what are you mixed with, or what are you? I can't tell, what have you. And I felt like I never thankfully really had to deal too much with specific, critiques or anything like that in terms of like a racial slur, so to speak. But in terms of dance, it was always like, okay, well, the way that she's shaped is not like how your typical ballet dancer would be, right? For me, I always use, I guess, I've always had a strong personality. So I used to use my personality as a way to deflect people in terms of, okay, so maybe they aren't really saying that to be crude or to be negative or just to be outright like, mean, if you will. But as I grew older and I started growing up and involving in just the dance community, for me, it was more or less fall in love with the actual art and not necessarily worry about what people had to say. As I started, my journey with doing classical ballet, and then I transitioned to modern contemporary. And then I've always had a love for hip hop. So then it came to the point where, okay, you would then have the different conversation of, well, so you were a ballet dancer, but now you want to do hip hop. And then it was again frowned upon in some respect. Are you sure that, you know what you're doing? Do you have this? Do you have, the technique? Do you have the experience to fall back on? But for me, I have met, especially in the African American community, hip hop community, it actually transitioned me to kind of coming into my own, especially doing film, especially working in media, as you mentioned, for 24 years, and that being in sports, being around all different types of athletes, but also being around women, particularly of color and empowerment and high level executives, to kind of be trailblazer for myself, just to continue my journey, whichever that may be. So now, being my 10th year as a dance judge, I see a lot. I want to make myself be a voice, especially for, especially young girls of color, brown and black skinned young ladies that are coming into their own with their passion, whatever that may be, whether it be ballet, whether it be hip hop, whether it be contemporary, whether it be, liturgical, what have you, to, find your own voice, but to give them opportunity, because as mentioned, there was always that critique and that stereotype that was like, oh, well, okay, so I worked behind the scenes. So I started off in television being an editor. And then, as I climbed up, the ladder, always being, always wanting to be in front of the camera as a dancer or performer, being behind the scenes, I always wanted to know how being in a network environment would kind of translate that to me, and I pushed my way through, thinking like, oh, they said, Monica, so you want to be a producer, you want to be a director? Oh, that's great. But I felt like, there were times where people didn't want to take you seriously based on, unfortunately, the way that you looked. But again, I feel like I have learned to grow, to have thick skin and just be, comfortable in my own skin, but also being exposed to many different cultures, and different people in general, whether it be from traveling to just meeting people, on an everyday basis. I feel like, it's always the way the saying goes is that just because where you came from, you never forget, but you can always change that narrative. And that's what I'm trying to do. And I continue to do so in sports. We see a lot of, especially in women, a lot of African-American women coming up, the pipeline. I mean, like, just to name a few, Sandra Morgan, Nicole Lynn, in sports, these are just a few. And it's very empowering for myself as well, because I look up to them. It doesn't matter if they're older, younger, what have you. Like, these are women that are trailblazers, that are setting the way for especially somebody like myself. Because for me, when people ask me, Monica, where do you see yourself in 5 years from now? I say, yes, outside of directing, producing, I just want to be bigger than where I was last year, better than where I was now. And in the future, I just want to sit there and do something that has yet to be achieved. And to me, it takes a village to do so, not just a person by themselves. So.
Woo. Okay. So what's interesting, and Jermaine, this was a kind of a sideways. I took a note and I was like, you know what? Let me just dip into this, especially from a historical context. So you mentioned hip hop, and you've had your share. What has it been for you as a woman of color to not only get artists to represent, but then to represent those artists to all the different companies that say, okay, and you are who?
Exactly. The one thing I can say is, and Evelyn mentioned it, understanding who we are, our power and identity, and what we offer. And so pretty much representing myself in order to get artists to want to be managed and represented by me. It's all in how you carry yourself. And the thing is, I am a woman of integrity, and I'm always going to be a straight shooter and let you know exactly how it is. But the other side of it is being able to also pour into the artist, because a lot of times people don't see themselves in the power that they possess, whereas everybody else around them, they see it, especially if they are capitalizing off of them. But for me, it's important to be able to allow people to know their identity. And also with artists that sometimes I don't think they realize, they are the one that's affording the opportunities for people to make money off of them. And they don't understand a lot of times that you own your rights even before you sign that contract. But when you don't know, you give away everything. So think about the industry and where it's at today. Think about how many people are selling, right? Because when people don't understand to be in the rights business of owning, but you think a lump sum is going to set you up. Most people today that have sold their publishing, they're probably asking, where is that money right now? While someone else is building legacy off of what you've created.
Right.
And you denied your family from that legacy because they may have sold you a story or may have promised you a bigger picture. But that's why it's so important. You must know who you are and what you possess. That will determine the power of what you can command. And right now, just to piggyback off of the question that you asked before, the way we've transitioned and come through the times, a lot of times people have dictated our stories, who we are. We're living in a day and time right now with the internet, this digital world, media. We are able to stand up and do it ourselves and not have to fit the mold of somebody else, which is so powerful in itself. So now you're hearing more storytelling. Now we can be more authentic because we have avenues and lanes to be able to put it out ourselves. It may take a little longer because you may not have all the financial resources, but at the end of the day, you can be more authentic with your story, opposed to somebody shaping and molding what you can and cannot say or do.
Right.
So.
Oof. Okay. See, we're double dutching. And I just heard Moosa's in the building. Okay. All right. So Moosa, I guess he's on a break right now. So let me introduce him. And Moosa, I'm not even going to take it. Why don't you tell us, brother, who you are, what you're doing? I already understand you're from Brooklyn. There's Philadelphia here. So you can get all that out your system. And then we can just get right into it. So Moosa, born and raised a Palestinian family in the Bay Ridge section of Brooklyn, New York, the oldest of 9 children, okay? Studied to become a doctor, but then he switched to working for an internet company. Graduated from Brooklyn College, spent 2.5 years studying theater at David. Appeared in numerous independent and Hollywood films in recent years. He performed on stage at the 2004 New York Fringe Festival, as well as the 2005 Arab American Comedy Festival. He currently resides in Los Angeles, California. Yo, we appreciate you getting up and being out there. I see all the accolades from, man, Fast and Furious to Super Bad. Yo, put your hands together for Moosa. What's going on, brother?
I appreciate that. Can you guys hear me? I'm doing this from, I'm doing it from my phone. I am on set. So it was so funny. I was trying to get one knucklehead that you guys might recognize to come say hi, but he's being shy right now. But I appreciate that. I appreciate the resume of sorts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. How's everybody doing?
You good, man. I throw
wait,
it out there.
Wait.
Clark said you had to be on, so that's why you here. Clark said I'm gonna get him on. So
yeah, he said a check was coming too.
Yep. And, okay. You're breaking up now. You're breaking up.
Yeah.
There is no check. Just want to put that out there.
He promised that months ago, and I'm still waiting. I'm still waiting.
See, here we go. That's the Brooklyn side. Always want money before you can get on. Help your people
out.
Well,
you know, Brooklyn keeps on taking it. What?
Good. Okay. Love it.
I see all these beautiful black and brown faces. So what are we talking about? Hang on a minute. You owe me money. I'm coming for you.
See, here you go.
Always owe me money. All right, go shoot that show.
Well, we appreciate you being. So one of the first questions that I asked was just pretty much a startup of the history, not so much of yourself, but where you've seen the industry go. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on, especially with people of color, no matter what your background is. But when you first got in to where you see it now, to where it may be going, how have you experienced that? Obviously, again, you have a lot of accolades, but it wasn't always like that.
Yeah, no. When I first started, I think I was I was like a handful of Middle Eastern actors who I'm still friends with to this day. Back in New York City, like there was only, it's crazy because a lot of us right now are finding success. You know, my friend Laith, who is on this successful Emmy nominated show, Rami, who plays the uncle on it, and me and him were splitting like falafels at Mamoon's in the city, just to survive. Like it was just, it's so interesting to see the transition of where we were and where we are now. But it's such a beautiful time. It's kind of like Jermaine said, that we're in a world now that we have our phones, cameras are cheap, equipment is cheap. You can just go and make what you want to make. You could be the voice that you are hearing in your head that wants to tell that story that nobody else is telling. It's a beautiful time for that, and the industry's shifting. You know, in terms of the industry, like it's nice to see crews that are more of color. You know, you talk about Philly, a good friend of mine. I don't know if you all know Rodney Barnes. Rodney Barnes, what is this giant of a black man. He is from Philly, well, from Maryland, but was also in Philly. He has a comic book called Philadelphia, which is about vampires, but he's writing on Winning Time. This dude started as Michael Clark Duncan's stand-in in the Green Mile because he happened to be the same height. You know what I mean? And now he is Winning Time on HBO. He has movies coming out. He's constantly working, and it really is. I think the lesson is you just stick with it. That's the thing. I've been at this 20 years, and I've had ups and downs, but I'm constantly blessed by the jobs that I get. I have a movie that just came out over the weekend. I made it with some really good people. You know, you just stick with it, and in terms of like, if I was ever going to give advice to anybody of color getting into this business, it's just like, it's going to be hard. It's always going to be hard. It might be a little bit easier now for this generation than it was for us because more doors are open, but it's still going to be hard, and you still got to prove yourself, and the best way to prove yourself is with your talent. It's not how many likes you get on Instagram or anything like that. It really comes down to talent, and it comes down to being just a decent human being. That's it. I could tell you as a director, as many rooms as I've been in, that somebody would say, and you'd be blown away, like a name talent that somebody would say, can't work with them. They're just hard to work with because they're not nice. And then seeing somebody get the job in the moment, just because people are like, I love that person. Always on time, always try as hard as they were. And they might not be the most talented in the room, but because people like you, you will work in this industry. So I always hold that to like,
you know, it's interesting that you say that, and this kind of goes into a question from one of our viewers, Angela, who's asking how you can build confidence in artists of color to know their worth. And I'd like to tie that into, and you kind of alluded to this by the brother that you said was a stand-in, and I'm sure Evelyn, as much as you produced and so on and so forth, and been behind the camera as well as June, because June's been all over the place as well, is your ability to actually be heard determined by how you look? And let me preface that from a foundation standpoint. You know, Stephen A. Smith is on ESPN, and the host is Molly, and it seems like every time I turn around, especially if you're female, it's always what she got on, what is she wearing, da 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 da. Is positive? Is that negative? And again, how do you build your self-worth, which you introduced earlier, Evelyn, but at the same time, to be heard? Now, do you have to look a certain way?
I think in my industry, in film and television, I don't think it matters anymore. I think your voice is what really truly truly stands out. Like, what do you stand for? And what are you bringing to the table? And if you know your craft as an actor, you're going to work. If you know your craft as a writer, you're going to work. If you are a good director and you have a voice in your vision, you are going to work. It's really, what are you bringing to the table? Because at this point, nothing is original, right? It's always going to be, you know, just it comes back around. Like the 90s are hot right now, right? So you take, it's kind of like what, you know, Jim Jarmusch would say, steal from everybody, but steal well and make it your own. Like, it's not original in the sense of like, the only thing that is original is your voice, your storytelling ability.
But is that the same for women though?
Of course, I think so. I think women have even more power now, especially in my industry, to really be forces of nature. I mean, if you look at the box office alone, like, you know, best example, Woman King, right? I saw that and I was blown away by it. And that was like a beautiful film made by Black women, you know? But look at the fight that they had to do to get it done. And then the fight to get it to be seen. It's always going to be a fight, but they made that film their way with their voices. Okay. But that film has been done many a times before with different faces and different cultures, right? We all know that story. That's basically Braveheart in its own little way. It's like every film, every culture has a version of that kind of story, but they made that story their way and put it out into the world. So I'm always saying, it's like, have an original voice. Find a story. We're always going to find stories that are going to be relatable, but have an original voice. And I think as a woman, as a person of color, it is a good time to just keep kicking down doors. I'm a Palestinian right now. And
yeah,
everybody knows
gonna
what's
let that
going
come
on in
around a
our
little
world.
bit later. I was going to jump on that in a little bit. Is that true though, Evelyn? I mean, obviously, working with Oprah and everybody else that you're with, do you see that again? Yeah, building self-worth, but more importantly, is the ability to be heard, to tell your story, determined by how you look?
Well, I mean, I think that is just the human condition, right? We're always judging people based on how they show up in front of us, how they look, how they speak. Some of it's survival, right? Because we want to know their intention. But I feel like it's better to really concentrate on what you can control and what you can impact, right? And so I can impact how I feel about myself. I can impact the level in which I delve into my craft. Like, I really agree with him about that. It's like, we're all individuals. We all have a different path. We all have unique talents. And my feeling is double down on that. We spend a lot of time sometimes looking outside of ourselves at what other people are doing. But I mean, I think about, you know, Tabitha. She is a perfect example of someone who tried for a long time to kind of be what, you know, the status quo was. And then she turned inward. She started to really focus and develop herself internally, practice her craft. She got on social media. She wanted to be an actress. And then all of it came full circle because she was being herself. And I think at the end of the day, that's the only thing that I or anyone else that's listening can really control, is be yourself and then figure out how to shine, figure out how to meet people, figure out how to connect with people, to share what you have to offer, make your own content. I mean, it's a very competitive, you know, we can't lie about that. So you really have to do what you need to do. When I first started in news, I was at a small station in Cleveland, Ohio, where I'm from. And I came in as a desk assistant. I worked the night shift and I wanted to be a journalist, and I had to figure out how to get tapes made, right? That's what we called them back in the day. And so I had to make friends, right? With the editors, with the producers. I had to ride in the truck and get out and make my stand-ups. And at the end of the day, had to do the work. I had to send out 60 tapes before I got my first job. So I feel like it's just a matter of where you put your energy. I can put my energy on how you're receiving me, or I could put my energy on what I'm trying to achieve. And I think that's the more positive lane to pursue.
And again, this is like double dutch. So anybody that wants to jump in, I'm not necessarily calling out. Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, I want to jump in. I think Musa makes a great point. Evelyn makes a great point. We're in a world today where when you look at the Lena Waithes of the world, you look at Issa Rae, and if you even look at what Spike Lee did many years ago, being your true authentic self, creating stories, right, that are relevant, that push the envelope, that push culture forward, and doing it well, you change the landscape. Because what Lena Waithe looks like isn't traditionally what we thought a director looked like, or what those writers look like. Same thing with Ava DuVernay, right? They've changed the landscape of a lot of the perceptions that happen. You can look at Michelle and Degniacello, right? They have changed the game. That they look so dope, but they look so dope because they're being their authentic selves, which allows creatives like those on this panel to be able to do what it is that we do. Like I can be an author and dress up with a bow tie, as well as become, one of the #1 hosts on This Is 50 doing this. And I just interviewed Swiss Beats. I just interviewed Chris Rock, and just being my authentic self, right? But still being hip hop and still being what I consider to be fly, just being myself. But because they've created this path and lane, if you just be your dope, authentic self, it's like I'm looking at Jermaine and I'm like, yo, look at her locks. Like, look at her big, dope glasses, right?
Right.
She's an in-between between a dope Oprah Winfrey and a dope Regina King. Like, same thing with Ever. Like, they're dope. Monica's dope because, and this is no disrespect, you may say traditionally, oh, she's just a cute light-skinned girl with nice hair. No, but she could be dope. It doesn't matter. But she got put into a dude like, oh, she light-skinned, she got good hair, so she's gonna be all right? And then you look at someone like Evelyn and myself, who have our own, so they're chocolate, right? And to tap into what we said earlier, as a dark-skinned man, I would shy away from people wanting to put makeup on my face because, you have to look like on camera like you should. And I'm like, nah, I want to look like this. I may wipe my face so I'm not shining, but you're not gonna make me look lighter than I am. And even now, I'm like, you just we were joking about it earlier. Let's get yourself a nice little ring light. Let your skin pop.
Leave my ring light alone.
Am I right, late? Listen, I'm the only brother on this panel besides Steven, so I gotta
leave my ring light alone.
I yield to the sisters on this call, but we have so many change agents, world changers now in so many spaces that we can be our authentically dope selves. And I applaud all the women on this panel. When you walk unapologetically in your dopeness, no one can take you to task. You just let the work speak for itself.
I want to chime in and piggyback off of that, because that is definitely one of my sayings. You never know. And I'm going to take it back. You mentioned you just interviewed Swiss Beats. And if I can go back when I was working with Rough Riders and when Swiss was living in Atlanta in the lab, and all he wanted to do was get to New York and produce. So he would be on the phone with me, Jermaine, just speak to my uncles, D and Y, bring me up to New York. He was that hungry back in the day. And look at who he is today. And so that's one of my statements that I always say is your work will speak for itself. Dealing in a male dominant industry like the music industry, especially back in the 90s when I was in, working and maneuvering and in and out of spaces. And it's the difference, I think, is when you can walk in a confidence and knowing, even when you don't know. I always became like the master asker. My best education sometimes was sitting in daddy's house with the artist and seeing how everything goes and asking questions. And believe it or not, being in Daddy's house, Puffy Studio, P. Diddy Studio,
Yeah,
you
whatever.
know,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. Whatever the new
But
iteration.
just being in there, I always say you never know who's watching you and how you handle yourself.
Right.
Because that's when I was approached by Darren Dean, which is Swiss Beats' uncle, who came up to me and just said, I like how you handle your business. I want you to come and really work with us. And that was the entry and the way into, you know, working with Rough Riders, being able to be in the rooms when Leor would come to the studio and see DMX and his rawness and getting ready to negotiate the deals with Def Jam. And, you know, but you never know who's watching. So the thing is, always, you know, be your authentic self. And all I was doing, because I was a sponge, I just wanted to learn. I wanted to know. I wasn't afraid to ask the questions. I wasn't afraid to make my presence known. And that's what allowed me to get into the doors and gain access and be able to just have on the journey that I was on that took me from the music industry and opened me up into the publishing world. And here I am, almost 17 years as a book publisher, you know, being able to share the power of people's stories. It's, you know, and the thing is, it's, you cannot be afraid, or you cannot look at somebody else's life and think that's where you should be, because you never know what that person had to go through to get to the place. And everybody has a backdrop story. Everybody, you don't just wake up and now I'm here, I've arrived, I'm at the highest level of performance. You got to go through some stuff. You got to pay your dues, you know? And it's okay. It's okay, because it makes you greater and you have more to offer, but it also gives you staying power. And so
let me dip in that, only because as a successful person of color in the industry, you all are you often asked to mentor another person of color? And do you even want to? You know, you guys have all paid your dues, quote unquote. You're going through it. I remember June, and once I started doing the history, I was like, okay, I didn't realize he's, you know, shirt out and chest out and all that stuff in the boy band back in the day. But I do remember when I first met him and moved up to Hartford, Connecticut, watching him do First Fridays at the Bushmill. And I was like, who is that dude? You know, especially coming from Philly, I was like, man, I want to get down with that. But, and then you get asked, hey, can you mentor me? Can you show me how you do what you do? And do you feel obligated to do that?
I want to take it. Yeah, go ahead, June.
I've been asked throughout my career. And then, of course, you start to begin to feel obligated. But what I've come to learn is you can't help everybody, because everybody doesn't want to be helped. Everybody doesn't want to put in the work, like Jermaine said. If I were to tell you from an artist, the 10,000 hours I had to put in, then losing the record deal to become an executive, putting in another 10,000 hours, then to become an author, putting in that 10,000, to becoming a TV personality and television host, another. So how much work are you willing to put in? But for those of us that are on this panel and we've been asked, you want to pour into people, because I truly believe, like, service is one, right? You lead with service. How can I help you? How can I be of help? I had a record deal, so I can teach you how to not how to get it, because you got to work for it until you become discovered, but how to keep it, how to continue to reinvent yourself, the pitfalls. We can teach everybody those things, but I've come to, in my maturity, everybody, even when you lead them to the water, they don't want to drink. They feel like, I don't know if I want this drink of water. Can you give me that drink of water? And you're like, no, this is what you have to do. Like, if
first,
you can't cheat hard work. You can't cheat putting in work. If you don't want to do the work, Monica did not become great at what she did as a dancer by just practicing 1 day a week. It doesn't happen. You don't become, you know, great in your industry unless you put in the work. So have I been asked? Absolutely. I've been mentoring and speaking to young people since I've been in high school, when I was the first person to create a talent show in my high school back in Windsor, Connecticut.
Right.
So, but that's been my life's work. But like I said, as maturity would have it, you know, you become a learner as well, that you can't covet the information. I truly believe when you covet that information, you do yourself a disservice, and you don't have the opportunity to save somebody's life. You don't have an opportunity to inspire and motivate people because you're holding on to the information, and shame on you if you're holding on to the information. You can be careful who you share it with.
Right.
Because you have to pour into, as many people as you can, but understand, like some of the great rappers, you can't help everybody. Everybody can't come. But figure out who is, Jim Collins. Who's going to be from good to great? Because there's some people that can't get to even good. But find those who are good and get them to greatness. But you got to be careful of your energy, your time.
Right.
Because you pour into people and there's nobody to pour into you. But like Jermaine said, when you have environments like Daddy's House, who I've been in for years, and you walk in and Jermaine, one room has Heavy D in it. The next room got somebody, and you're like, let me have a conversation with Heavy D. And you're like, man, some stories, but you can't keep those stories.
That's right.
You're supposed to share them with like-minded people to say, man, let me give you this gem that me and Monica was talking about. And me and Evelyn talked about this. So let me share with you. And Jermaine is going to go ahead but be careful with the information. Because one, everybody can't receive it. Because then people say, oh, you just hating. You telling me to do all this, but you ain't have to do that. And you're like, you don't know what I had to do.
Yeah,
right? Jermaine said it. You don't know my story.
Right. I know Dion Kipping, a good friend of mine, wrote a song, I Don't Look Like What I've Been Through.
That's right.
Amen.
And I tell people that all the time. You don't know, I'm not there, but when people see me on stage or whatever else, like, oh, and I had another good friend. He was actually one of 100 Men of Color, and actually had another group that said, there's a lot of people that can't get on stage and do what you do, Steve. So that nervousness, so on and so forth. Like, Monica, I know every time you get on, when you're about to dance, or even as a judge, because sometimes you don't want to give somebody a piece that you could take because of what you've been through. So you don't take it to heart as much as somebody that may not be able to receive it, to June's point, where all of a sudden now you just broke that person. You want to encourage and lift up. So as a judge, how do you kind of decipher that to kind of bring somebody up as opposed to, you're not really ready for this yet?
Sure. And I also want to touch upon what June said. So he made a comment in terms of, everybody wants to, they act like they want to get where, you are, or where, such and such wants to be, but they never want to put in the work, or they just want to be there when you already are where they would like to be. They don't want to sit there and put in the work at the same level that you did. So like, for example, judging, and believe me, people are like, Monica, how can you just have like this poker face? You know what I mean? When you're judging some of these, these young ladies and men, and that's another thing. I welcome, it's always been, years and years and years, dance. If you were a male and you did dance, you were automatically deemed as weak, a gay man. You didn't, all these things, and there goes another stereotype. So first and foremost, to see, men and women doing dance at a level of competing, and at such a high level. But I also, when I have to sit there, it breaks my heart sometimes, not because of the dancers. Also, if you mess up or you miss that pirouette or that fouette wasn't, spot on the way that you wanted it to be. It's when I glance over and I see these parents and the coaches, it's very detrimental to some of these young men and women, because they're just like, well, what did you do? You're never going to be able to go to Juilliard. You're never going to be like the next Misty Copeland. Like, what are you doing? And that pressure. And I know coming up, there's always been that pressure. I'll be honest and say that, especially my dad, God rest his soul, but he wasn't always keen. He loved the fact that I was creative. He loved the fact, and he always knew that too, that I was going to have this creative side of me, but he wasn't always applauding me from the sidelines or in front of my face in terms of wanting to dance, wanting to go into acting. Because he was always like, how are you going to make your money? Like, what are you going to do? Like, what's the real job that you're going to be doing? You know what I mean? It hurt also just to kind of hear that, because that's your parents that's saying that to you also. But for me, and again, just to go a little bit more beyond, for me as a judge, I never want it to ever come across as I'm judging you for what you're doing technically, never as a person. Because sometimes these judges that are on this panel with me as we're judging, I really have to, and not all of them, not, and we try to be very diverse, but there are some, and you know, we try, and people are entitled to their opinion, but there are some times when they're tallying up the scores, I want to ask, can you just explain to me how you came to that conclusion of that score? Because I could be giving them a 9, you know, between like 8 and 9s across the board, from choreography to execution, you know, they're giving them like 4s, and I'm like, but why? Like, just help me understand that, because these coaches have access to our score, our tabulating, for, you know, for privacy and discretion. We don't give our names. We're all assigned a number, so a number translates to who we are, right? So it pains me to see that, because some of these judges can't even give me a real answer. They're just like, well, Monica, that's just my opinion. But no, it's got to be better than that. You know what I mean? Because I guarantee if that was your son or daughter, are you still going to be thinking that same way? And also, you know, Stephen, you were touching upon the fact of, you know, in terms of mentoring, you know, so my son plays high school basketball. And, you know, the one thing that he also likes to do is he does have a creative side, even on the digital editing side, but he likes to act. I won't, you know, if he was here, he'd probably be like, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do me like that right now. You know what I mean? But he loves to perform. He loves to perform. He loves to dance. And a couple of years ago, I didn't realize he kind of had a little bit of, you know, he had some actual notes that he could carry, believe it or not, even though he was 10. I mean, I was like, okay, I never saw that coming, but here we are, you know. But I bring him up because there are young men like himself that, you know, are athletes, and that I feel like they're afraid to have the conversation of wanting to transition into another type of career, you know, in terms of, are they going to be judged because of that? You know, or people, you know, their boys, their friends will say, hey, you know, why are you going to do that? You want to be a director? Like, for what? Like, you know, you're not going to be like, you know, well, anything like, you know, you're not going to be like that, you know. And I feel like what it does, it diminishes our youth. So for me, in terms of mentoring, I welcome that. And it doesn't matter, because I tell them, guess what? Not in the entertainment and sports industry, it's not always pretty. In fact, 9 out of 10 times, it's a struggle in the beginning, you know. But you gotta want that, because I always tell people, if you're gonna start off in acting, don't base it off of, you know, oh yeah, I can't wait to be a millionaire, like off that. You know what I mean? You've got to come in there, be completely just, you know, an open book, and say, and be as transparent. And I always try to tell people that, because I want people to be like that with me. I just tell people, you know, that's not how it's going to go. You have to put in the work. You know, we all want to be noticed for our strengths, you know, and we all can continue to learn. You know, I always tell people also, like, you know, Denzel Washington has always been one of my favorites since I was a little girl. But do you think that he stops working, that he stops perfecting his craft? No. You know, we all attain to have that one person or persons to be like that. For me, there's so many people that I aspire to be like. Even, you know, people on this panel, you know, that I'm very thankful to be on here with, and I'm intrigued by listening to everybody's story and what their background is, and to be like, gosh, so you know what, like, everybody's struggle is different, but everybody's struggle is real. And just because the word struggle does not necessarily translate to, oh, like, bad. It doesn't do that. If anything, to me, struggle means you surpassed where everybody, number one, anticipated where they thought you were going to stop at, you know. And struggle to me means you are rising, and you are being able to take what you gained from other trailblazers, you know, in the forefront. You're shedding light on those people. And right now, I feel like the youth, it's very important. It's very important. Music, like what June said, like, being in the music industry, like, I just see this now, like, gosh, like, first of all, music has changed. You know, I'll be listening to some of the things that my son's, you know, listening to, and I'm like, did they even, like, what did they even say? You know, like, the lyrics, I guess, for me growing up, that's what I miss, hearing, like, where they touch you, you know, things like that. But I mean, like, collectively, artistically, my gosh, the talent is out there. It is out there, you know. And even in acting, producing, you know, some of these women that are coming up now, I'm like, my gosh, you are just like genius, you know. Well, I mean, like, it's incredible to me.
Not to cut you off, but it's funny only because you talked about struggle. And this is something that I find very, okay, we Black, so I'm gonna just ask the question. So Evelyn, you talked about Cleveland, Ohio. We're not even going to get into Cleveland football, which is Lord knows. But what is, as you were and getting on these trucks with all these dudes and all that type of stuff, what is some, as you were coming up, and I can ask anybody this, one of the most brazen things that you've ever been asked in your profession? So kind of like, I can't stand when somebody comes up to me, especially when I'm real bald. You're like, wow, how you get your head like that? What? Like, or how did you do X, or how did you do Y? You're like, how do you get your, wait a minute, what? Like, do you not know that I'm a Emmy nominated? Did you not know that I won an NAACP? Okay, do you not know who you're talking to right now? What's one of the things that somebody asked you? You was like, girl, like Biggie said, I got a story to tell.
Well, I think of a specific example, but I could tell you something that I think will resonate. And I have been asked in many cases,
Oh boy,
how did you get here? Right? Where'd you come? That kind of thing. Like, how did you get in this room? And I think people can say that to you, maybe verbally. They can look at you in a certain way. They give you that impression like you're not supposed to be in this room. And I'll share another example where very early on, I had to kind of deal with that. When I gave you that example of being in the newsroom, my first job, and I was on the night shift, and there was a girl who went to Harvard, who was in the same newsroom, and she was on the day shift from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. And I wanted to be a reporter. I didn't necessarily want to stay in that station, but what I did have to come to terms with is the fact that I belonged in the room. If she was in the room and I was in the room, we both belong there, regardless of how we got there, right? And so I think that's the thing that you constantly encounter when you go into different rooms is, people questioning or wondering, how did you get here? And I'm just kind of like, don't worry about how I got here. I'm here, right? And I'm here because I'm supposed to be here. And so I think that's what happens when we talk about imposter syndrome, right? Where people are like, well, I don't know. I got this job. I don't know if I'm good enough, if I'm supposed to be here. I guarantee you, if you're a person of color, you probably worked 3 times as hard as everybody else in the room. And you, out of everybody, should be in that room. So it's like, so a lot of the work is internal, and I always kind of bring it back to that because, people are always going to question whether you deserve what you have. And as long as you know that you did the work to get there, then that's all that matters. Just keep it pushing, right? On to the next. Boy.
She said, keep it pushing. I was waiting for when we was going to everything, the earrings was going to come off. I said, it took about an hour, but that's all right. Let's go. Go ahead, Jermaine. I see you about to jump in. I see the double.
You know what? I love it. I love when people want to question why you are where you are. And I always say that's a you problem, not a me problem. And the thing is, at the end of the day, it's your job to figure it out, not mine. So, but with that, I want to just piggyback real quick. When you talked about mentoring. I'm huge on problem solving, and I pay close attention when I'm dealing with clients. I pay close attention and listen at what their needs are to know how to even be able to give them what they need. And so mentoring, I think teaching and paying it forward has always been a part of who I am because somebody or somebody's taught me,
Right.
Today, I'm in the process of launching my Hope of Vision Publishing Academy and it's not just about publishing. I always tell people that it is about the power of storytelling because we don't realize, every single one of us on this panel, those that have tuned in, people don't want to hear what that story is. But we don't realize how we're influenced by other people's stories. We're sharing our stories right now on this call that have life lessons in it. That someone's going to walk away with something that could change their life.
Right.
And so the mentoring is so important. And like June was saying, you got to protect your space. Everybody should not have access, because you have givers and you have takers, and you have some people that will deplete you and try to take everything from you, you know, and then do nothing with it. So it's your job to protect that. But I always I tell people, and one of my partners, I say, you know what? When people want to just take, I said, put a price on it. That will determine how serious they are. You know what I'm saying?
That's real.
So in the consulting business, you know, your time is valuable, and the knowledge and all that you had to go through to be able to share knowledge is valuable.
Right.
And so for those that want to waste your time and not really serious about it, put a price on it. This is what my fee is. I have no problem sitting down, talking, pouring into, showing people, but this is what it's going to cost.
I
and
remember,
if you value yourself and serious about what you are doing.
It was funny you said that. I remember as a young recruiter in the technology industry, I had a boss say to me once, and I didn't know any better at the time, this is 2 decades ago, asking her a question, and then she didn't give me an answer in the time that I thought she should have gave it to me. So I went and asked somebody else the same question. Well, it got back to her that I asked the other person. I said, well, you're both partners in the firm. I thought, I'm just asking. And she said, don't waste my time. Time is a commodity that I can't get back.
Right.
Just because I didn't give it to you in the time that you wanted doesn't mean that I still didn't have the knowledge. But now, not only did you waste my time by asking because you went to somebody else, and I know more than that person, first of all, but now I got to explain to you how you wasted my time. So what are you going to do with my time? How are you going to pay me for that? And I was just like, I don't think I cried, but I was just like, holy cow, I never had somebody tell me that. But now I do say that, like, time is not a commodity that you can get back. So to all of your points, you got to really have a sixth sense of who wants it. But at the same time, like you said, I got to put a price on it. And it's funny because I think maybe, and you guys would know better than me, in terms of the strike. How did that affect, and now contracts have been signed and so on and so forth, but how did that affect people of color in regards to the time that they were trying to say, no, I need to be paid for this. I get YouTube, I get Tubi, whatever all the stations are, I get Netflix. But man, that's my time. And now we got AI, and how does that affect everything? So in terms of being paid for your time, in terms of putting a price on that, do you guys feel that disproportionately affected people of color, that strike, and everybody, like you said, Evelyn, behind the camera, doing the tapes, whatever?
Absolutely. One thing that had to happen is people of color, especially, right? But I am on the side of creatives, period, have equity in this industry. When you look at people that we love who are struggling, when you look at Billy Porter, who publicly said, now I'm going to have to sell my house. That's a shame because we see him on shows and in spaces that we love. And how is it that he can't, and I don't even think he was 2 months into the strike. He was like, yeah, I'm going to have to give this thing up.
Right.
To me, that says we have to do better. We have to make it fair. We have to make it even. These studio houses and these companies can't just walk away with the bag of money when most of the creatives, most of those who are giving us not only the lines and the scripts, but the ones who are delivering it to the point of us laughing or crying as we watch it, they don't have any equity in it. That means what at this point? Because I'll be honest, AI is cool. AI is cool, but guess what? AI is not human. It can't give us the emotions that we need to write. Here's the thing, two things, and I want to backtrack a little bit. When we talk about working actors, right? The key word here is working, right? Some of them aren't the Denzels of the world, right? Or name anybody who's up here. They are working actors. That means I work, I get paid. I keep this thing going, and I love what I'm doing. They may not want to accumulate a bag of money. It's like, yo, as long as I can take care of what I take care of, like this is what I love. I love being in front of the camera on stage. We have to be able to. The subscriptions are crazy, right? So if the subscription is crazy, you spend all this money on amazing budgets, amazing sets. You got to take some of that money and reinvest it in the creative people who bring these things to life. It's one of the things I'm fighting for in terms of just the state of Connecticut and making it a STEAM state instead of a STEM state, because we don't have enough funding for arts and entertainment. And art saves lives. Art changes lives, right? And if we don't respect that, and there's no disrespect to STEM, but a lot of that stuff revolves around the arts. If we look at it from the proper lens, right? But I digress. I'm gonna leave it right there.
No, I want to piggyback off that. I mentioned earlier when I talked about rights, ownership.
Yes.
The one thing we've gotten so comfortable in depending on a system to pay us, and we forgot it's our talent that's affording that system to even be in existence. And so this time during the strike, it was good for me to be able to work in. I worked with some directors, just some people that I'm connected to that was nervous, not knowing how they were going to make ends meet, where their next check was coming from. And for me, I thrive in this space because it was for me to help them see themselves bigger than this system. Nobody should be able to cripple you to a place you cannot provide and feed for your family. If you allow that, you find yourself stuck in this place. And so I just began to speak and talk to them and show them the product that they create, the asset that they have, and how they can look at generating multiple income streams from that within themselves. We are in a times whereas we can just go to the internet and literally create, we don't have to wait the traditional routes to get a distribution deal. You can just go and begin to establish and set it up yourself.
Right.
And so people have to see themselves bigger than what they see themselves and not depend on a system. Much is not really going to change. The strike is over, thank God for that, so people can get back to work. But if you think about it, they're still in the same predicament. They're still giving up what's rightfully theirs, what they own, giving it to a system, and they are building legacies off of what we've created. So we got to understand how to take that power, how to build our legacy and keep it in a place where our families can eat for generations. And we're afraid to do that sometimes.
Now, for the 2-year-old in the room, myself, and I take that movie from Philadelphia when Tom Hanks, when Denzel, Denzel said to Tom Hanks, during Philadelphia, during the AIDS joint, he said, I need you to explain to me as if I'm a 2-year-old.
Definitely.
From what you're talking about, Jermaine, and I don't know how this is, Evelyn, with what you do, but I definitely know June has touched on, especially as a music artist. Is that where we're talking about in terms of real money, say royalty versus syndication? And is that what's also fought for instead of, oh man, I just got signed by X, Y, and Z and they just gave me $1 million. And then we find out later, what do you mean, for example, Mace, what are you doing arguing with Puffy? What you mean you broke? Like, I don't know how each industry works, but is that a difference that somebody doesn't go after royalties? I remember seeing a bunch of stuff with Nas, and his daughter is like an executive producer on everything that he does. And I was like, wow, how's that work? Is that what you're talking about when you're talking about feeding your legacy for life? Is that what Nas was thinking about when he made his daughter executive? So anything that's touched, she now has somebody that's,
She gets a check. One of my mentors, Ron Sweeney, who I work with, he established Digital Disruption, which is a platform, and it teaches the difference between rights ownership, whereas you partner with, whereas you own your intellectual body else. So you talk about royalties. And when you think about it, I mentioned earlier, people selling their catalogs.
Mhm.
They're selling what they've worked so hard for, what they've created, and they're selling them, which you think it's a lot of money, $150 million, right? Think about $150 million. It sounds like it's a lot of money, but the minute you start paying the people that have their hands in the pot also, your attorneys, those that are part of it, that 150 million is no longer 150 million, probably is probably about $75 million,
Mhm.
if not less, and that's for the rest of your life now, because you just gave the rights away for your rights, your family legacy. You just gave away to somebody that owns so many more rights of other people,
Right.
so they can establish legacy for their family, and their family can have generational wealth, while your family, it stopped pretty much after you, because guaranteed, in most cases, that money will no longer be around, because we're not taught how to make that money work for us, how to make that money last through generations,
Mm.
and so
Okay.
think about, you're in the music industry, you got creative people on this panel right now. So
Right.
that means you're creating something that people are able to enjoy, right?
Right.
People are able to, go and watch your films, go and listen to your music years later. Are you getting those checks? Who's getting
Right.
those checks?
Right. Right.
Somebody's getting those checks. And the thing is, when you are not knowledgeable about how you handle your business, that means somebody else is going to profit off of it, not you.
So,
and that's been one of the biggest issues. Go ahead.
oh, my lamp almost got knocked down. Yikes. Can't do that for the color.
I would love to jump in on that.
Yes, exactly. Because I was going to say we're at the 1:20 mark, and in respect of your time, I want to keep it on time. So go ahead, Evelyn.
Yeah, I was going to say, piggybacking on what you were saying, one of the most important things you could do is educate yourself about the business side of any industry that you're in. And in entertainment, you could be in syndication, unscripted. Every deal, the deal structures are different depending upon what you're doing. And so the challenge is you want to get on, so to speak. You want to be a part of this industry. And so a lot of times people sign contracts, sometimes not knowing that this is not a good deal. Anything that says in perpetuity means that they're going to take your money forever. So if you do nothing else, look for those
look for that word
in your contract, and that'll tell you that something's wrong. But, even though we want to win, just take a minute and try to find somebody that has some type of legal knowledge that could look at your contract and believe that what you have to offer is worth enough that they're trying to give you a contract. So if they're
right,
and so knowing that, make sure you have someone look at it. And at the end of the day, your journey, your destiny is yours alone. Never be afraid to walk away from something, right? Don't ever be so invested in something that you're willing to give away your soul. I understand we all have to eat, but you have to be willing to walk away to ultimately get the thing that you really want in life. And you will be challenged with that over and over when you go from one level to the other. But you have to figure out what your value system is. How do you stay in integrity with yourself, and then make decisions based on that. But most definitely read the contract and ask the question and ask for more money. Don't be afraid to say, you have to do your research first, right? And figure out, what does this pay generally? And if somebody is offering you less, but they're still giving you a contract, something's fishy. So just take some time. Don't be in too much of a hurry. Even if it's your dream, if it's for you, it's going to be for you. It's going to come for you. But you have to protect yourself along the way.
And surround yourself with people that are, like you said, people, not your homeboys, not your best friends,
right?
People that are knowledgeable, that can give you good advice. And then if you don't know, I always say, be a master asker. Ask questions until they're tired of hearing from you.
Right. Well, and so that leads into 6 minutes left. And again, in respect to your time, I said, I don't care. There's a song, gospel artist that said, "Dear Younger Me." And he went through all this stuff. What would I tell myself, younger me, based on my experiences that I have now? A minute each. I'm going to start going left to right on my screen. Jermaine, if you could tell your younger you one or two things, what would you do? Because we probably got people listening or going to watch this that are going to say, man, I never thought of that. I wish I'd have known that. Younger you.
My younger me, if I had known the most powerful ability that I had back then when I was younger was the ability to make choices and decisions, I probably would have made some better choices and decisions, but I don't regret anything that the younger me had went through, because it got me to a place today that I can help so many people and give them an opportunity to let their vision become their reality.
Got it. Monica, younger you, what would you tell yourself?
I would have probably told my younger self just to keep going. I felt like there was at times there was hesitation with, wanting to go into the field that I wanted to, feeling like I was going to be judged or questions. And Jermaine, I love your saying, be a master asker. I'm gonna start using that. And guess what? If there was a way for me to give you royalty each time I said it, I definitely will find a way to do so.
Okay.
But right, yeah. But I would have definitely told myself, yes, just keep taking the chances. You don't think that that you don't think that people would even look at you and take you seriously. Just go ahead, go for it, because you have nothing to lose but everything to gain.
Evelyn, younger you, back in Cleveland.
I would say there are no mistakes, just lessons. Dust yourself off, get back up again, keep trying, and ask for advice from people you trust.
Okay. June, let's go. Younger you, shirt out, chest out, on the dance floor, pipping and popping. Younger you.
I'll tell you this. I agree with Jermaine. If you change one thing, you change everything.
Fair enough.
I would just encourage my young self in the way of June. It may start out with a few of y'all, but it may be only you. But don't let anyone stop you from doing what you have in mind, and understand, like Jermaine said, what's yours is yours. And if you work hard, you will get it. I promise you. I worked hard and I got it. I am you, and you will do this. But as you do it, there are going to be people who ain't going to like you, and that's quite all right. Keep going.
Okay. Y'all did that. Okay, 127. I will say, cliches aside, that one of the things I learned as an artist, but definitely being a salesperson and in sales, goes along with actually what everybody said to encapsulate. One, remember that you're the expert and you have to act as if. Nobody knows who you are until you tell them who you are. You just told them that you didn't know anything about what you're talking about. But if you act as if, I didn't have a thriving business, but I acted like I did, because I talked to people and so on and so forth. And to the walk away point, when I was a recruiter talking to a CEO at that time, I didn't know, oh my gosh, what do you mean you just got a $500,000 bonus check? Wow. But I couldn't act like that. I had to act like, oh, 500,000, that's all you got? And then it was like, what are you talking about? What do you mean? I had no idea, but you have to act as if, right? And I think that's one thing that I would tell the younger me. And the second thing, which I'm sure all of you have done at a certain point, in terms of know what you're worth. And you are, and I had a boss tell me this, Stephen, you're going to put in the same amount of work for 25 grand, that was the fee, as you will for 50 grand. Ask for the 50 grand. If they're not going to give it to you, okay, cool. Walk away. And I didn't believe him at first, but man, was he right. He put in the same amount of work. If to Evelyn's point, if you have integrity, you put in the same amount of work. So sun, moon, and stars, Shoot for that. It's 128.
You know what, Stephen?
Uh-oh.
Also, what you got to tell these young people or your younger self is everybody that you need to know and everything that you need is in the room. Make sure that you network to the best of your ability, like your life depended on. And so I'm going to give you an example of how that works in this space.
Go ahead.
So together, and we talk about this TV show idea that I have, and we make that come to life. I'm going to go to Jermaine and I'm going to say, I've had this book sitting on the shelf for a minute. I'm ready for this to happen. And one of the first guests I'm going to have on the show is going to be Monica, because I really need her to come on the show. And talk to these little young Black and brown girls to tell her story, to understand you don't always have to be on stage. You could be behind the scenes and still make magic happen, have a sustainable career, and walk in your Black girl magic. And then we're going to thank Comcast and, of course, Liberty Bank for being a sponsor on these shows and making sure that they cut everybody a check. That is all I got to say. That is networking at its finest and its best. And I'm already following them on IG. Except I didn't get Monica. I didn't see your IG. So you got to hit me at June Archer, JUNEARCHER.
Right.
And let's make some magic happen.
So I'm glad you said that, because we're at the 1:30 mark. And I'm going to go down the line again. Jermaine, where can everybody get in touch with you at? Not your email, but website, whatever.
The website is 90daybookcreation.com, and it has everything there to access.
Awesome. Monica, what you got? Where can people find you at?
You can find me on Facebook at Monica Lee, or IG. You can find me at ms._Monica_Lee, LEIGH.
Excellent. Miss Evelyn, where can people find you at if you want to be found?
Yeah, you can find me on IG at Evelyn Brooks, Evelyn with an O. And my website is sunbrookproductions.com. And that's where you can kind of see all the work I've been doing.
Awesome. June, knock it out the box, baby. Where can people find you at?
You can find me at IamJuneArcher.com. And I do not believe in imposter syndrome. So you can just Google me and the work speaks for itself. I am so appreciative of being on this panel with these amazing women. And I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Kate.
Awesome. So my name again is Stephen King Jr. I've always wanted to do this. I'm not on TV, but I always wanted to have somebody roll the credits. So obviously we want to thank the West Hartford Chamber. There we go. The West Hartford Chamber, we appreciate that. We want to thank the Minority Business Network. I want to thank Chris Clark, who is the chair of the Minority Business Network. Hopefully he's still watching, making power moves. Thank him for letting me moderate SKJ Experiment. SKJ Experiment, that's my band, that's the group. People that know me know, singer, artist, or if you want to know the other side, yes, you can find me at Deputy Mayor at southwindsor.gov. Anyway, appreciate all of y'all being here for the colorful conversations, talking about the entertainment industry. Chris Conway, is there anything that I missed that you need to say? And I'm going to make sure I need to play the music in the background. I wanted to say that the whole time, but I didn't know if I knew her like that.
So I am just going to jump in here, and amazing things always happen at Colorful Conversations, but I think this is the first time that an entire production company was formed at a Colorful Conversation. It sounds like that's what's going to happen. I just want to end to June and Stephen with lots of gratitude. I want to thank the people who joined us today as viewers through Zoom and through Facebook Live. Thank you. I want to thank Kate. And Kate, why don't you spotlight yourself for a second and take a bow? All of you who watched this, and every time somebody started speaking and within half a second you saw the person speaking, Kate was working the board there. So thank you, Kate, for all you do for these programs. Again, thank you to the Minority Business Network, who works diligently to bring programming and resources to the community through the West Hartford Chamber of Commerce. So thank you for all the work they do. Chris Clark, chairperson, and there's so many members of this committee, and I know I'll forget somebody. So check us out, and you'll meet them all. And then certainly want to thank our sponsors again, Comcast Business and Liberty Bank, for the financial support they provide to allow us to bring these programs to you. So with that, I think we'll close, and
appreciate y'all.
Yep. Like the Super Bowl and the Oscars, the following morning, the planning for the next one starts. So stay tuned for the next colorful conversation coming probably in about 3 months. So thank you.
See you tomorrow, everybody.